Most people spend the better part of their lives asking one question. They ask it in the morning when they wake up. They ask it when they walk into a room. They ask it when they meet someone new, when they take a job, when they enter a relationship. The question is this: what can I get? What can I get out of this deal? What can I get from this person? What can I get from this company, this city, this opportunity? And here's what is interesting to me. That question is not wrong exactly. We all have needs. We all have desires. There is nothing shameful about wanting something from life. But I want to suggest to you today that as long as that is your primary question, what can I get, you will always find yourself slightly short, always a little frustrated, always chasing something just out of reach. Because here is what I have discovered over many decades of observing human beings and studying what separates those who live rich, full lives from those who do not. The people who receive the most from life are almost never the ones who are trying hardest to get. They are the ones who have learned to give. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. You are thinking, that sounds like something a Sunday school teacher would say. That is nice, but I live in the real world, and I understand that response. I used to feel the same way. When I was young, broke, ambitious, a little arrogant, I thought the world worked like a vending machine. You put in effort, you pull the lever, something comes out. The whole game was about finding the right levers. It took a man named Earl Schoaf to turn my thinking around. He was my mentor. I met him when I was 25 years old and going nowhere fast. And one of the first things he said to me was this: Jim, if you want more, you have got to become more. And if you want to become more, start by figuring out what you can offer. I did not fully understand that at 25. I nodded politely because he was a successful man and I wanted to learn from him. But the meaning of it settled into me slowly, over years, like rain soaking into dry ground. What he was telling me was that the whole orientation of my life was backwards. I was asking, what is in it for me? And the question should have been, what can I bring to this? That shift from getting to giving, from taking to contributing, that is what I want to talk about today. Because it does not just change one area of your life, it changes everything. The way you work, the way you relate to people, the way money flows, the way opportunity finds you. Let me show you why. There is an old principle that has been around longer than any philosophy book, longer than any business school, longer than any civilization we can name. It goes like this: you reap what you sow. Now that sounds simple, almost too simple. But let me tell you, most people do not actually live by it. Most people live by the reverse. They want to reap before they sow. They want the harvest before the planting. They want the salary before the service. They want the respect before the performance. And life simply does not work that way. The farmer does not walk out to the field in October and say, I would like some corn now. I will plant the seeds later. Of course he does not. He knows. You put the seeds in the ground in spring. You tend the crop in summer. You harvest in fall. In that order, not the other way around. But how many people approach their careers, their relationships, their finances, as if they can harvest first and plant later? I have watched people show up to work and put in just enough effort to not get fired, and then wonder why they are not being promoted. They have never planted anything. They have just been standing in the field waiting. I have seen people enter friendships and marriages asking, "What am I getting from this person?" without ever seriously asking what they are bringing. This is backwards living, and backwards living produces backwards results. Here is the law. Give first. Give consistently. Give generously. And then, in due season, the harvest will come. Now, I want to be careful here. I am not saying you give and let people walk on you. That is not what I mean at all. What I mean is that your default orientation, your first question should be, what value can I create here? Start with that question and watch what happens to your life. Let me tell you something I have observed, and I think this is one of the most fascinating things about human psychology. When a person begins to focus their energy on contribution, on genuinely adding value to other people's lives, something changes in them. Not just in their circumstances, in them. They become more interested in the world. They develop a kind of alertness. They start noticing things they never noticed before. Problems they could solve, people they could help, connections they could make. Why? Because the question, what can I give, is an active question. It forces you outward. It forces you to pay attention to other people, their needs, their struggles, their desires. And when you are paying attention to other people, when you are genuinely interested in their lives, you become interesting, you become valuable, you become someone people want around. Compare that to the person who is always thinking, what can I get? That person becomes increasingly self-absorbed. Everything filters through the lens of their own wants. And the more they focus on what they want, the less they are able to attract it, because nobody particularly wants to help a person who is only thinking about themselves. I used to know a man in my neighborhood years ago. Wonderful fellow in many ways. But every conversation with him came back to what he needed, what he was owed, what life had not given him yet. Within about 5 minutes, people would find a reason to be somewhere else, not because they disliked him, but because the conversation had only one direction. Contrast that with another man I knew, a very successful man by any reasonable measure. Every time you spoke with him, you felt like the most important person in the room. He asked questions, he listened carefully, he offered ideas, he made introductions, he was always thinking about what he could do for you. And here is the interesting thing. He was also one of the busiest, most sought-after people I had ever met. People would cross town to see him. They called him, they sent him business, they recommended him to everyone they knew. Why? Because he had been planting seeds for years. Everywhere he went, he left value, and the harvest just kept coming. Now here is something important. I want to draw a distinction. Contribution is not charity, and it is not purely an emotional act. Some people wait until they feel generous before they give. They think generosity is a mood you fall into. Some days you have it, and some days you do not. That is not how I think about it. I think generosity is a discipline, like waking up early is a discipline, like reading is a discipline, like staying in good health is a discipline. You do not always feel like it, but you do it because you have decided it is part of who you are. I have given when I did not particularly feel like giving. I have shown up for people when I was tired. I have invested time in others when I had plenty of other things to do. Not because it always felt natural in the moment, but because I had decided years before that contribution was part of my design. And the discipline of it, the practice of it, eventually shapes your character. Like the farmer who gets up before dawn every day for 30 years. After a while, it is not discipline anymore. It is just who He is. So let me say this practically. If you want to shift from a getting mindset to a giving mindset, do not wait for the feeling. Make the decision. Then practice it daily in small ways until it becomes your natural orientation. What does that look like in real life? It looks like showing up to work every day asking, what is the best I can bring today, rather than what is the minimum I have to do. It looks like going into a meeting wondering how you can make the people across the table better off, rather than calculating what you will walk away with. It looks like mentoring someone younger than you, sharing what you have learned, not hoarding your knowledge as if it is a limited resource. It looks like giving a generous tip to someone in service work, not because you have to, but because you can, and it matters to them. None of these things are dramatic, but over time, they accumulate, they define you. Let me address something directly, because I have heard this objection many times. People say, Jim, that is a beautiful idea, but is this not a tough world? Do you not have to be aggressive? Do you not have to fight for what you want? Is it not naive to think about giving when the competition is fierce? I want to answer that carefully because I respect the concern behind it. Yes, the world is competitive. Yes, you have to work hard. Yes, you have to be skilled and disciplined and persistent. No one is handing anything out. But here is the misunderstanding. People think that the giving mindset is passive, soft, that it means standing back and hoping someone notices your goodness. That is not what I am saying. The contribution mindset is actually one of the most aggressive strategies you can adopt because it forces you to continuously improve what you offer. It forces you to develop real skills, real expertise, real value. You cannot contribute meaningfully if you are mediocre. To give well, you have to become capable. One of my favorite observations is this: the market pays for value, not effort. Let me say that again. The market pays for value, not effort. Two people can work equally hard. One of them has taken the time to develop rare skills, to understand what people genuinely need, to build a reputation for delivering extraordinary results. The other has worked hard but has not focused on what the market actually values. Who gets paid more? The first person. Every time. And here's what is fascinating. The first person, the one who got rich, was probably not asking, how do I make more money? They were asking, how do I get so good that people cannot afford not to pay me? They were asking a giving question. What can I bring? What can I offer? How do I become so valuable that the world has no choice but to reward me? That is the contribution mindset applied to career and money. It is not passive. It is one of the most powerful orientations in business. I want to take a moment here and speak to something that goes beyond strategy, because I believe there is a spiritual dimension to generosity that transcends any business principle. Now, you can hold whatever religious or philosophical views you hold. I am not going to prescribe theology to you, but I think anyone who has lived long enough and watched life closely enough comes to notice something. Generous people tend to live well, not always financially, though often that too, but well in a deeper sense. They have more peace, more connections, more meaning, more contentment with who they are. And people who have spent their lives in an almost desperate grasping, accumulating, protecting, calculating every move in terms of what they will receive, those people often end up, even with tremendous material success, feeling surprisingly empty. I have seen this enough times that I have come to believe it is a law, not a coincidence. A law. There is something about the act of genuine giving, giving without keeping score, giving because it is right, that does something to the soul. It enlarges a person. It connects them to something larger than themselves. I remember years ago, a woman I knew, not wealthy, not a person of any particular public prominence, who gave her time consistently to a literacy program in her city every week for years, teaching adults to read who had never learned. And I watched her over time. She walked differently. She laughed more easily. She had a kind of quiet authority about her that you do not learn in any school. It came from knowing who she was, from having a clear answer to the question, what am I doing with my life? That is what contribution gives you, an answer to that question. Let me bring this closer to home for a moment. Everything I have said about career and money applies just as directly to personal relationships, maybe more so. I have spoken to thousands of people over the years at my seminars. And one of the most common complaints I hear in every city, every country, goes something like this. I feel like I am always giving and never getting back. And that is a real and painful experience. I do not want to dismiss it. But here is what I have noticed. When I sit down and talk with those people carefully, something else often emerges. Sometimes, yes, they are in a genuinely imbalanced situation with a person who takes and does not give. And in that case, the answer may be to reevaluate that relationship. But often, more often than people expect, what I find is this. The person has been giving strategically. They have been giving with a ledger in the back of their mind, keeping careful track of every sacrifice, every effort, every accommodation, and waiting, quietly fuming for equivalent return. That is not giving, that is trading, and it poisons the well. Real generosity in a relationship is giving without the ledger. Giving because you love the person, because you have chosen them, because contributing to their happiness is part of what gives your life meaning. Now, that does not mean you accept mistreatment. A relationship has to be mutual to be healthy. But the contribution mindset in relationships means you stop keeping score. You stop calculating. You ask every day, how can I show up well for this person? And when both people in a relationship are asking that question, what you get is something extraordinary. A marriage, a friendship, a partnership where people feel truly seen and cared for. That kind of relationship is rare, and it is built one act of unscored generosity at a time. I want to share one more thought, and this one is perhaps the most important of all. We are not here forever. I know that is not a comfortable thing to say, but it is true, and I think the truth of it matters for how we live. At some point, none of us know when, we will look back on the time we had. And the question that will matter then will not be how much did I accumulate. It will be, what did I add to the world? What did I leave behind? And by that I do not just mean grand gestures. Not everyone builds a hospital or founds a company that employs thousands. Most lives of contribution are quieter than that. What I mean is, did you make the people around you better? Did you help someone find their footing when they were struggling? Did you share what you knew? Did you show up? Did you give your best day after day, even when no one was watching? That is a life of contribution. And I genuinely believe, That is the life worth living. I have talked with very old men and women over the years, people near the end of their lives, and I have asked them in different ways what they think about when they look back. They do not talk about the cars they drove. They do not talk about the deals they closed. They do not talk about what they accumulated. They talk about people. They talk about moments when they made a difference. They talk about the look on someone's face when they helped them through something hard. That is the legacy of giving, and you can start building it today. So here is where I want to leave you. You have a choice about the fundamental question that guides your life. You can wake up every morning asking, what can I get today? And you will get some things. Life is generous enough that even that approach produces results. But if you want to live fully, if you want the kind of success that actually satisfies, the kind of relationships that actually last, the kind of career that actually means something, then I would invite you to change the question. Start asking, what can I give today? What value can I bring to my work today that I have not brought before? What can I do for someone in my life that they are not expecting? What skill can I develop? What knowledge can I gain so that I have more to offer tomorrow than I have today? Those are the questions that build something real. Now, I want to be honest with you. Making this shift is not easy. It runs against a current of habit and culture and instinct. You will backslide. You will catch yourself thinking in old patterns, calculating, comparing, keeping score. That is fine. That is human. Just notice it and return to the better question, because here is the last thing I will say. The contribution mindset is not just a strategy. It is not a clever trick for getting more by pretending to give. Life is too wise for that. If you give strategically with a hidden ledger, life knows, the people around you know, even if they cannot articulate it. Real contribution comes from a genuine decision that this, adding value, helping, giving, serving, is who you are. Not what you do when it is convenient, who you are. And when that becomes who you are, something shifts that I cannot fully explain in words. The right people start appearing. The right opportunities open. The right circumstances seem to arrange themselves. Is that coincidence? Maybe. I have stopped trying to prove it. I have just noticed over many decades that it is true. Give first. Give well. Give consistently. And then step back and watch what life gives you in return.